How are you today? Not awake yet. How are you today? Who's happy today? All right. Say amen. Do you remember 5 or 6 years ago? You may have been sitting on your front porch. You may have been sitting on your back porch. You may have been sitting in the kitchen with the windows open. But you suddenly realized that you could not hear the song of a bird. I'll never forget that day when it just dawned on me that the West Nile virus had firmly come to Illinois. The next year, a few birds. The year after that, pretty much back to normal. And the appreciation for that made Terry and I want to start to feed birds and to have a bird bath so that they would come around our backyard more. And we could enjoy that wonderful and delightful act of God's creation called birdsong. And I could remember with regret that it took the loss of that beautiful music for me to fully appreciate its beauty. There are many ways to experience deprivation and abundance. Without a doubt, I prefer abundance, unless it comes in the form of lots of traffic, loud noises, and too much tax. How does one find and experience abundance? Can it be created? I know people who make lots of money and can buy lots of stuff. But is that the abundance that we're talking for or looking for? Let's think about things and the quality of life as we continue our journey to generosity, this year's stewardship theme. And let's ponder the possibility that abundance may always be present. Let's begin looking at Jesus' statement as recorded by Matthew, that there are some things better understood by children than the wise and the intelligent. This has always been a tough idea for me because I'm a real left-brain guy. I think there's nothing better than thinking and reasoning and learning. But for the last year, I've been focused a lot on being a baby. Because, you know, we had a granddaughter a little over a year ago. And this granddaughter is the happiest baby I have ever seen, and that includes my 3 children. If you love them, babies are open and welcoming. And this little girl is so loved that her arms are always open. Sometimes even like this. She's ready to grab on to some more. Her world is full of abundance because it is full of love and the security that love offers. Thank God for her mom and dad, for her grandpas and grandmas and her aunts and uncles. One does not think themselves into such a world. One does not reason or use math to add up your blessings to find abundance. One simply experiences it and rejoices in it. You see it or you don't. One finds abundance, affirms abundance, wallows in abundance until each life step is like a part of Snoopy's Happy Dance. Now, how many of you here are old enough to know what I just said? It was my favorite poster in my college dorm room, right next to Janis Joplin. Going back to the birds, understand how vital it is to notice. Notice the song and when it is gone. One has to notice what is good. Theologically, Paris would call that being thankful. My daddy would have called it paying attention. And Sherry Maxon in her meditation group would call it being centered or being present. Personally, I don't think a person who is not thankful can be generous, except for maybe with gripes and complaints. Before the birds left, I did not truly appreciate birdsong. Wasn't a birder, didn't pay much attention to them. Now, however, I have 3 friends who are birders, and they help me notice birds. I have a great pair of binoculars. They help me notice birds. And I now notice and appreciate birdsong, attract them with food, and take time, as many mornings as I can, to sit outside and enjoy them and give thanks. Another dimension of my life has taken on deeper and significant meaning because I notice. Noticing is important. Notice your blessings and joys and thankfully reach out to cherish them. Be like my granddaughter Madeline, who remembers those who love her and wants more of that love. Enjoy the life you have been given. Focus on the good things and avoid distracting disappointments. Someone once said that depression is living in the past, that anxiety is living in the future, and that peaceful living is focusing and living in the present. Our culture abounds in distractions, telling us to want rather than encouraging us to listen to our spirit and God's spirit tell us what we need, just the basics. What's good for us? Keep it simple. And now, if I was as talented as Paris, I would sing to you a great Willie and Waylon song. Fortunately for you, I won't, because I can't sing. But I will tell you about a really long book that I read this spring. It took me 3 months. Anybody here read *Sapiens*? Good for you. Well, there's 2 of us who have given hours to reading that book. Yuval Harari, an Israeli historian, lays out a strong case in his book on why Homo sapiens became the dominant force in the world. He says the most salient reason was that Homo sapiens developed language. And because they created language, they could create culture. And that led to many things, some good and some bad. One of the things that it did was allow us to create a specialized society, meaning we were no longer foragers or hunters living day to day. We became specialized workers with a need to constantly consume that which was produced by other people, so that everyone would have work, productivity, wealth, and the security that that offered. But that wasn't always going to be the case. In a consuming society, we begin to focus more and more on our wants, which encourages some selfishness, I suppose. And we were no longer a community of people who all needed the same thing. Someone to hunt, something to plant, and something to eat. We became horse buggy builders, coal miners, stagecoach drivers, all of whom lost all or a good portion of their livelihood. And that creates a lot of dissonance, where people can lose their ability to be grateful and generous. Change can be overwhelming, and choices can be bad. The other day, I wanted a snack. You see, I'll tell you a family secret here. My wife eats too many potato chips, so occasionally she bans us from buying them. And I wanted a potato chip, so I stopped at the gas station to buy a potato chip. There were 20 different kinds of potato chips there. I could barely focus on it. And everything there had too much salt or too much sugar, and I thought, maybe this isn't even a good idea. change, and choice create difficulties for us. Tony Periwinkle and Mike Bloomberg think that 20 kinds of chips aren't such a good thing. The manufacturers of snacks, on the other hand, are quite convinced that it's a good thing. And those of us who are consumers think, is health a good thing when one has it, or only after one loses it? So we try to learn to yearn for what is good rather than what is easy. If you go a bit deeper into this mess today, you realize that there is food everywhere, and yet we have food deserts in America. Food abounds, but we have nutritional and even food scarcity. Harari states that more money is spent on diets in America than some countries spend on their whole consumption of food during the year. So how is it that Americans can be hungry and undernourished? In a consumer society, we have a hard time knowing the difference between abundance and glut, the root word of gluttony. So how can we use our daily experience of consuming and getting ahead and succeeding and keeping our job and competing and progress in our understanding of how we can live as God's children, already given all that we need to be whole, secure, and happy, yet often unable to recognize these generous gifts? Now, at this point, I have to take a step even further away and talk about money with you. I've been doing a lot of work in behavioral finance the last few years, and there's some great research that's come out that's really universally accepted as true, that $75,000 is the magic amount of money it takes for a family to be happy. And that's a very interesting thing, because in Illinois, our median income is $73,884, a full $5,624 more dollars than the median U.S. income. We're all a big happy bunch here in Illinois, right? Now, I kind of agree with this, both in my personal life and in my professional life as a financial planner. I've made less, and I have made more. And as the apostle says, I've learned to be happy in each place. Probably because that happiness doesn't really come from the money, but from what you do with it. I have been fortunate to always make enough to feel secure. I've had a roof over my head, a doctor for my children, and protection from all the elements, and I've had enough food on the table also. A Tesla or a Mini Cooper? It's a car. A fur coat or a winter coat from Penny's? It's warmth. French cuisine or an entree from Alexander's? It's a meal. Does not matter. There are people sitting on their front porch playing a little guitar and singing songs who have more joy than Donald Trump playing golf every weekend with his $660 million. And neither his millions or Ken Griffin's $8.5 billion, he is the wealthiest man in Illinois, is any happier than you or I. This was brought home to me this summer when Terry and I took a long weekend in Asheville, North Carolina, a town, by the way, with a median income $29,000 less than Illinois. We went on a euphoric float down the French Broad River, which runs right through the middle of town. The river was summertime slow. And if you've ever been in a canoe or a kayak, you know what I mean. Terry and a friend, our hostess, were talking together like crazy from their respective kayaks, and I was the very macho backup man who was about 50 feet, 100 feet back down the river, so that if somebody tipped over, I was there to help them out. You can't imagine how amusing it was to watch two women talking like this the whole time and wondering why their kayak paddles never fell into the river. It was amazing. I think we floated 4 hours, and I hardly paddled. Now that's what I call a great day. Flowing down a river, like flowing with the Spirit of Christ in your life, is a wonderful and gracious experience. The outfitter said we might find some bears. We didn't, but that's okay, because there was a delightful dragonfly that was on my leg or on my kayak the whole time. There were some interesting clouds. Lucy and I looked at them and imagined what they were. There were birds flying overhead, none of whom dropped anything on me, which I appreciated. And there was that beautiful flowing river. There was a symphony of sounds and a panorama of sights, and it was marvelous. It gave me many reasons to give thanks and reminded me of you, people for whom I always give thanks, because you give me a meaningful church home and are part of my blessed life. The river float made me feel like I had so much to share and so many reasons to share. It made me feel like I could so easily embrace and give. It made me feel like my little granddaughter, Madeline. I just wanted to reach out and embrace life, to love, appreciate, and give back more. Have you been amplifying your joy by embracing your blessings as you journey toward generosity? When most of what we feel is gratitude, generosity is the natural next step. So I hope that you will this month be challenged to focus on the many gifts that you have been given. And then when you get your financial commitment card and your time commitment page, take time to discern how generously you can respond. With our renewal process this year, your church leaders have been focusing on ways to get the best return from the gifts of your time and your talent and your resources. In our inaugural effort last year as the stewardship committee helping you make commitments of your time, we quite frankly did an inadequate job of asking you for that, and you wholeheartedly responded by not filling out the card. So I hope that you will embrace our greater, more stringent effort this year, and you will take that yellow piece of paper and fill it out and turn it in. I am going to promise you something. Just like you cast aspersions upon Chicago's electoral process, there will be something in it for every one of you who participates. A quid pro quo give back, okay? You have my promise. Now, we don't care if it's a dime or a dollar or hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. We don't care if it's an hour or an afternoon or a week. What we care is that we all express our gratitude by making commitments to be generous with our resources, so that we can build houses in Texas, dig wells in Africa, teach children in our church, be a new beginning for abused women, shelter for the homeless, and food for the hungry. And please, dear Lord, find time to pull the weeds around the church. Let's all do what we can, because we realize that gratitude, not greed, makes the world a better place. I say it again, gratitude, not greed, makes the world a better place. Become a child again and appreciate the things close to your heart, not the things forced into your head. Smile, laugh, run toward opportunities, not away, and embrace what God has given you. In your life, there is abundance. There is peace and joy aplenty. From it flows the generosity that others need. It has been given to you. Will you notice the gift and share it? Will you abundantly reflect Jesus, who lives in you, that others may recognize that and give thanks? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.